It's 5:45 p.m., which means it's time for BC TV's Nightly News Roundup. I'm Roland Boyden. This show is 5:45 Live. Tonight, we'll talk about the ruling from Judge Murtha in the Entergy lawsuit against the state of Vermont. We've got Steve West live here in studio. He'll talk about that as well. And, of course, we'll do our new high-tech traffic report. I'm excited for that. All that and more here on 5:45 Live. So make sure you stick with us because we're going to try and do it all in 15 minutes.
The judge, he does a lot of note-taking, so I tried to get a picture of him looking up, but he's looking down a lot of the time. The judge doesn't take a lot of riffraff. He's very succinct about what he wants.
Welcome back to 5:45 Live. That's footage taken during the Entergy nuclear Vermont Yankee lawsuit against the state of Vermont. First day of the court hearings. That's local artist Deborah Lazar showing off to us here on 5:45 Live some of her courtroom sketches and talking about Judge Murtha, now one of the most talked about men here in Brattleboro, as his court ruling came down yesterday afternoon in favor of Entergy Vermont Yankee. I've got Steve West here from WKVT's Live and Local 1490 AM radio. He's over in Studio B. Let's see if we can get him on. Steve, thanks for joining us here.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here.
All right, well, we're going to try and break down this this show here, or this, I should say, this ruling here, talk a little bit about the legalities of it. Hopefully we can do it without making it too dry, and some of the other components of it. We've got statements from Bernie and Shumlin. We'll talk about some interviews we've got going up. But I just want to start with you here. You had Representative Welsh on your show today, so maybe we can start there, and then we can kind of break down this ruling here.
Well, it seems pretty clear that at least our three Washington reps are in agreement that they're certainly not in favor of or certainly frustrated by Judge Murtha's decision. But I spoke with Representative Welch at length today about not so much nuclear power and energy policy and so forth, but really about states' rights and about the rights of people and citizens within a state versus corporate overwhelm was one of the gentler words I was using for it. And I think he's in agreement that this is really becoming a litmus test for much of the country and for industry as a whole and for citizens. Citizens united in the way citizens ought to be united, and the question is, you know, who really has the power here? And I think that's what's up for debate right now. And for those of us, you know, trying to Monday morning quarterback it or decide, you know, what should the judge have ruled? I don't know. I'm not a judge. I don't know those things. I imagine he's pretty good at what he does. But it speaks to some of the weaknesses in federal law, and it certainly speaks to some issues that translate to all sorts of things around state sovereignty.
Absolutely. You know, you talk about people, you know, sounding off. This has been the buzz around town, and I think in trying to understand this, I you know, was up early this morning trying to make my way through this 102-page document, and it just really brings it home how complex this is, and in some ways I would say how dry this is. This is really for everybody that is battling here as it regards nuclear power and whether this is the right track for Vermont and Vermont's energy future. This is not really what this case came down to, and I think, you know, to kind of take a step back and after this decision and really for people to look at the details of this case is going to be really important for people as they try and wrap their head around this decision and wrap their head around where Vermont's headed next.
Well, I would caution any of us, no matter where you fall on the side of this issue, to not make like we know what we're talking about. I mean, this was days worth of deliberating and presenting evidence and reading, and the judge spent, you know, 4-ish months on this. I don't know how to be a federal judge, but I do know how to be a citizen, and my wish is to have, and this is my personal wish, not anything more, if the Vermont State Senate voted 26-4, and the Vermont State Senate is the proxy voice of the people of Vermont, and voted pretty clearly that they didn't want this corporation operating within the bounds of Vermont, then that's what I think needs to be the precedent. And if federal law doesn't support that, then we need to look at the law, not so much at Judge Murtha's decision. But I think we're really up against some genuine challenges. We are a state that feels very strongly about a lot of things, and there are people on all sides of the issue. I'm not saying it's one one direction or the other. But we do, why do we have representatives? If we're not going to ask them to be proxy voices for us, we send them to Montpelier and we say, please vote in favor of what we ask you to vote for. Please represent us as constituents. They do so in an overwhelming majority and cross the aisle, Republican over to favor with the Democrats. And then that is kind of wholesalely rejected in federal court. The Entergy folks, I have no quarrel with people working at the plant, but I think that folks in Louisiana operating this plant and managing it are making decisions that have really nothing to do with the people of the state of Vermont. And come March, we won't even be receiving any of that electricity, is my understanding. So what do we gain from this other than dry casks?
Steve West, he hosts Live and Local. It's on the radio weekday mornings, 1490 AM, WKVT. Steve, thanks so much for checking in with us, and
Sure.
we'll hope to keep things going here over in Studio B. Steve West. All right, you may notice Joe Bushy. He's snuck back onto the desk here. Now, Joe, I want to backtrack a little bit. As Steve talked about, the complexities here, and as people formulate their opinions, none of us are federal judges. This is hard stuff to understand. I've tried my best to do my homework in efforts not to make a fool of myself on the show today. I think maybe I did more harm than good in that regard. I don't
think you could do that.
Yeah, this is a hard thing to wrap around. I want to start quickly with a quote from Judge Murtha from the 102-page document he issued. Having gone through this now, it certainly has some really important information for anybody trying to understand how this decision could have been made. Certainly you can skim through it, and the last couple pages are the crucial parts where it talks about the final decision. But there's a lot on the different acts that conflict, that play a part in this as well. I want to start with his quote about the basis for this ruling, and Joe, maybe I can get you to start by reading this here quote, we put it up on the screen here for our legislators.
Well, this court's decision is based solely upon the relevant admissible facts and the governing law in this case, and it does not purport to resolve or pass judgment on the debate regarding the advantages or disadvantages of nuclear power generation or its location in the state of Vermont. John Murtha.
Absolutely. So, part of that then really, as we start to try and put this together, this, for people who are, perhaps, I remember when this court case started, people outside the courthouse with their signs, about the merits of nuclear power. This really comes down to, it's, some are calling it states' rights. I'm not even sure that it's quite that. But I want to just take a quick look at some of his statements from this piece. We'll break down the acts that are involved here. But first, I want to take a look at what both our Vermont Governor, Peter Shumlin, and Senator Bernie Sanders had to say about this. They also issued statements. Hopefully people get used to our screen here, our quote screen with the church steeples and the 545 live ticker in the background, because we got quite a lot of those today as we try and spice up a little bit these things we're reading. We hope to have some interviews come on Monday. We did just talk to somebody at Bernie Sanders' office, so hopefully we'll be doing an interview, maybe by video chat, probably by phone on Monday. And we did talk to somebody at William Sorrell's office as well. So hopefully Monday we'll have the interviews. Right now we've got these graphics. Let's take a look. So this is from the governor, and he writes, "I'm very disappointed in today's ruling from the federal court. Entergy has not been a trustworthy partner with the state of Vermont. The plant received approval to operate until March 2012. I continue to believe that it is in Vermont's best interest to retire the plant. I will await the Attorney General's review of the decision to comment further on whether the state will appeal." Now, a lot of people thought that, however this shook out, that the losing party on the losing end would appeal this. We'll have to see going forward if the state of Vermont is going to decide to go that route. Now, let's see. We also promised Bernie's statement here. I'll get a similar screen up here if anybody recognizes this. Take a look at what Bernie had to say as well. He writes, "It's inconceivable to me that Entergy can force Vermont to allow continued operation of Vermont Yankee, an aging and problem-plagued nuclear plant, when the people of Vermont want to move aggressively to energy efficiency and sustainable energy." His website is sanders.senate.gov, and among other things, you can get the direct link to the 102-page document issuing the judge's decision. So that's on there. His full statement, it's closer to a page. We just snipped one of the paragraphs there as well. All right. Joe, I'm going to take a little bit of time and try and, I don't want to bog this show down with too many technical details, but to go through some of the things that I've pulled out from this statement here to take a look at and to just kind of break down a few of the components involved in this piece of legislation. There's a couple of different things kind of in conflict with one another here. Part of this document, and the reason I think it's really worth reading for people, or at least reading some of it, is that it actually explains each of the acts here. And even if all you're doing is looking at the table of contents in the last couple pages, it can, I think, really shed some light on what's going on. It has a history of Act 74, which has to do with dry cask storage authorization, history of Act 60, of course, kind of at the crux of this, Act 189, and a lot on the Atomic Energy Act, which ends up being kind of the ironclad act that sent this Entergy's way, this whole thing. So a lot going on here in this document. Again, I don't want to make this show too dry, but I want to just kind of look at a couple of the components here before we wrap up. We have a couple more minutes. And I'll start with the Atomic Energy Act. Now, this was originally passed by the U.S. Congress in 1946, and it provides the Nuclear Regulatory Commission the authority for setting the standards for use of nuclear materials to promote the nation's common defense, protect health, and minimize potential danger to life or property. And U.S. Congress created the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to replace the AEC when it passed the Energy Reorganization Act of 1974. This act gave the NRC the responsibility for regulating various commercial, industrial, academic, and medical uses of nuclear materials and energy. It's, basically this is what it comes down to, and ultimately Judge Murtha determined that Act 160 from the state legislature, which gave them in essence, gave them the authority to advise whether or not Vermont Yankee received a certificate of public good, was in conflict with this federal law, and therefore sent this Vermont Yankees way. We're going to have more on this when we talk about this on Monday. Hopefully we'll have some interviews to back this up, and we can ask people a lot more knowledgeable than us about the rest of this. But for anybody that's interested, again, senate.sanders.gov, you can get the full ruling here. Even scanning a few of the 102 pages will help you maybe come to terms with this a little bit more.
So there's a link to it on Sanders' webpage?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we can put a link to that up on our 545
We'll put it up on our
Facebook
545
page,
Live Facebook page, absolutely. We'll put a link to the complete Act 160, Federal Power Act, and then the Atomic Energy Act as well. And of course, what I was just reading about the Atomic Energy Act comes straight off of the U.S. Department of Energy's official website. So we'll put that link as well. Anybody that wants to do their homework on this, well, we'll see. It ends up being homework, but yeah.
Equipped.
Exactly. All right, Joe, that's about all we got on this piece of the puzzle. I want to move on a little bit maybe to one of the other things we pegged, totally different direction, and that's a high-tech traffic report here, one of my new absolute
weather report
favorite
too,
things.
before we're done.
You want to start with that then?
Sure.
Go for it. I'll put you on the close-up cam here.
All right. Well, according to a conglomeration of weather sources, it looks like we may get another 2 to 4 inches of snow between tonight and tomorrow afternoon, and then warming up towards the 50s on Monday is what they say.
Plenty of snow overnight.
Chance of sleet and freezing rain Sunday night. Depends on where you are. Higher elevations probably, but 50 almost on Monday, they say. So a little snow tomorrow.
For anybody with a car...
Patriots on Sunday.
Patriots on Sunday. They could go to the Super Bowl. Could be Giants-Patriots in the Super Bowl again. Crossing our fingers. Back to the snow removal just for a second. If you are, in fact, somebody with a car and a lack of parking space, can't park on the street tonight. Anytime there's snow, you're in for a ticket or a tow.
If the lights are on.
If the blinking lights are on, we'll see, depending on the snow they expect to get. That'll determine that. You can park in the parking garage overnight. Overflow from the parking garage is across the street in what is now the co-op's parking lot, across the whetstone from the co-op. All right, as promised, traffic report. Let's see if I can get it up on our monitor and our input screen as well. Take a look at the latest on the traffic today. And then we'll wrap up the show. We got just precious little time left.
Oh, look.
Here we go. We'll get it back up here. Looks like Putney Road, heavy volume. In addition, looks like if you're going north on Main Street from Malfunction Junction to High Street. That's standstill traffic. That's what the red is all about. Heavy volume out by the Rotary. 91 traffic goers are good to go. Of course, our traffic report powered by INRIX and Beat the Traffic as well.
Another mention is from exit 1 to exit 2, both lanes, north and south, are now open in both lanes and expect to be that way until mid-March.
Excellent.
At which point in time they'll start new construction on the other side of bridges. So.
Excellent. All right, just a few quick things before we wrap up on the calendar. The Living Memorial Park ski lift is open until 9 tonight. It'll be open from 10 to 4 tomorrow and 12 to 4 on Sunday. Winter's Farmers Market tomorrow, and coming up on BCTV here on this here channel, Channel 8, we're going to have Democracy Now! At 7 p.m. And at 10:15 p.m. we'll have the Vermont Workers' Center Human Rights Day Conference from the 21st of December. Over on our Government and Education sister channel, Channel 10, we'll have starting at where am I looking here? At 11:30 p.m. we'll have Senator Leahy talking about contraband smuggling and laws that are changing that in the state of Vermont. That's all I got, Joe. We got to wrap this show up. We'll let the Studio B folks release Steve West, who's been patiently waiting. Steve, we'll put you on camera one more time. Thanks so much for being down here. It's a good thing you have an iPhone.
Live and local.
Yakking away we're doing. All right. What is it I usually say, Joe? For BCTV and 545 Live, I'm Roland Boyden alongside Joe Bushy and Steve West.
We're out of here.
Thanks for watching.